Hello, hola, bienvenue to the latest episode of Crash.net's meeting of the F1 minds on the Off the Grid chat show, which comes as the paddock prepares to go back from their summer break, which was all about 5 minutes, and prepares for this weekend's 7th round, the Belgian Grand Prix. Usual formality to these things, be sure to hit like and subscribe, whatever it is, on the Crash.net F1 YouTube channel. And if you like things on two wheels too, then don't miss our Crash.net MotoGP YouTube channel too. Please comment too, even if it's just to appreciate my t-shirt. If you can see the mirrored kind of silence, actually, it obviously says Minardi, up the underdogs. Joining me today on the digital sofa is two of the sport's most learned ladies. It's Julianne Cerasoli and Kate Walker. So welcome again.
No, thanks for having me here. I know you're showing boobs here. I don't have anything to show. Boobs.
And I say, do you like the t-shirt? We've got Alpha Tauri trying to flog the Red Bull's clothing brand, but I prefer the originals. It's a little bit not as old as me. It's 1989, but yes. But we've had a breather, but we're tapping back into the next race. But at least we now know that there will be the 7th of 17 rounds. We're not even that close to halfway with the confirmation of the calendar, but it does mean we're definitely going back to Turkey. Off to Silverstone, I reckon Pirelli's going to be sweating a little bit on the prospect of these cars tackling that quadruple Apex Turn 8.
Well, if I can start, I think it's going to be, everybody's so excited about this Turn 8 thing, but it's going to be so easy flat with these cars. I don't think it's going to be that exciting. That racetrack, most of the races weren't that exciting. Only Lewis Hamilton for GP2, I was going to say Formula 2, but now usually I make the other mistake. But now it was GP2. He had a very good duo with Nelsinho Fittipaldi. Nelsinho. I'm the Brazilian one, and I cannot get my names right. Nelsinho Piquet, of course. That was the most exciting race I remember in Turkey. So even though people are very excited about that corner, I think that corner is going to be very easy flat for them nowadays.
Would you make it, Kate? So the classic track we're going back to, do you think?
Well, so the last time we had a really good race there, the last time we had a race there actually was Sebastian and Mark had a little bit of the contretemps. So if we can have teammates behaving badly, which is always an opportunity wherever we're racing in the world, I think we might actually see a bit more fun in Turkey. But tyres are going to be interesting. I mean, it's going to be colder than we've ever raced there. But the Pirellis are not quite as durable as the Bridgestones we remember.
Now you say there about teammates clashing. Can anyone really hope to get close to sort of Lewis Hamilton? Like as you said, then he has great memories of this place. It kind of cemented his what would go on to become this huge success he had experienced in Formula One. So, judging by kind of the cars we've got now, the drivers, who will really suit that sort of circuit?
Tough one. I think nowadays is more about which car is going to be suited, and there's a lot of fast corners there, and some not that fast. So I do not see one track in the whole calendar that doesn't suit Mercedes. So we have to go with Lewis once again. And Lewis is always a driver who adapts really quickly to every new challenge he has in front of him. The same with Max as well. So I expect to see a good race because it's a lot of unknowns. As Kate pointed out, the tires being very cold, and a track that I think only Lewis and Kimi raced on, and Sebastian, of course. But I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's going to be quite a new challenge for everyone. But actually, I guess it's quite far off. Still in the future, we've got quite a few rounds to get there first. But there's we're missing some classics like Interlagos this year and Suzuka, etc. But this kind of revised calendar, what do you kind of make of it? We've got Mugello coming up first and Portimao, both.
We've got Imola as well.
Circuits for the teams, plus then obviously go back to Imola and Nürburgring. Yeah. So which one are you most looking forward to out of those 5 kind of either returning or new ones?
Oh, for me, Imola, absolutely. I mean, I think Mugello is going to be fantastic. But I went to Imola a few years ago for a Senna commemoration, and we walked the track. It's just one of those places that gives you the tingles. And actually seeing cars racing there, plus anywhere in Italy, Imola's fantastic for food. Mugello's not half bad either. So both of those are top of my list.
You're going to be heading down there as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm actually moving to Italy for a couple of months, so not for the racing, but I'm going to be taking advantage of the racing and the food while I'm there.
What about Portimao? Because as myself, I cover a lot of bikes, and it's very well known for as a bike circuit, more for super bikes than it has done. It's going to be on the MotoGP calendar for this year for the first time as well. So very undulating, very fast sweeps, and a very long final straight as well. It's exciting to actually have these quite should we call them conventional circuits in the kind of modern F1 age to be kind of thrown into the mix just to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, if Mugello is high speed, then Portimão is Portimão, okay? It's not Portimão, Portimão.
It's in Portugal, there we go.
Algarve. Portimão is even faster, much more high-speed corners, and it's a big not for the Pirelli tires because it's in late October, right? A week after my birthday, actually. I will not forget this race. But it's still,
there we go.
Yeah, that's late October, but it's still warm in that region in Portugal and very high-speed corners. And we know what happened last time the Pirelli had to face a challenge like this. So I do expect, I don't know if they announced if I'm missing something. Probably I just spent to time away with my August break for 2 days. Maybe there was an announcement there that I missed, but I think they didn't announce the tires. I expect them to bring C1, C2, C3 and play safe, because after what happened in the past few races, I think they have plenty of reasons to do so.
Now, it wasn't confirmed either way, to be honest. Obviously, Bahrain will be the two of the final rounds, hosting 2 races. There's a lot of rumour about the fact that it could use a different layout. There's the endurance layout, which was so exciting the first time around, it could use, or it could be this sort of Roval style track that's been mentioned. I don't know if you had a look at it, Kate, that this track is, it would be a sub 1 minute lap. It would be very fast. It would be a bit more kind of IndyCar as opposed to F1. Do you think that's a good addition to the track? At the end of the season, one, I had a bit of a blowout.
Well, I think it could be fun. And when Bahrain did the endurance layout last time round, that was actually my first ever Grand Prix as a journalist. And I remember calling it the Bahrain Grand Prix because it felt like it went on for bloody hours. And then a couple of years ago, I went to the Bahrain WEC finale because I wanted to do Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, and then Hong Kong Formula E in a row to round out the season. And oh my God, it was just dismal. I mean, yeah, and I love the circuit. I love going to Bahrain. I actually always have a really good time there. But the endurance layout is not a fun one. So if they can throw this sort of crazy oval thing in, I mean, why not shake it up a bit? By then, the championship will be decided anyway. Yeah, and, you know, unless something really crazy happens.
Do you agree with that, Ju?
Yes, I would agree with that. But the last thing I heard about it is that they're not going to do it. They're going to do it in the same circuit, the 2 races. Which would be a missed opportunity here, because Bahrain, a lot of people asked about Silverstone because everybody knows that Silverstone has many layouts, but only one layout is Grade 1. And that happened throughout the whole season for all the other tracks that they had multiple races on, which is only one more. But that's not Bahrain's case. In Bahrain, you can do it. They're all Grade 1s, all the layouts. But the last thing I heard is that they are not going to do it. Maybe they're going to throw some tires, something different, but it won't be the layout. But that's a pity. That's
a shame. That's from me. There's a bit of a party pooper kind of thing. It'd be nice to sit and do something a little bit different. It's annoying that they kind of almost brought it up and they're sort of taking it away at the end as a essential. But we don't know for sure at the moment. So who knows? It could change. Now, between the races, they managed to squeeze in a big announcement. Mercedes held out rather than Ferrari for once, but we do have confirmation of the new Concorde Agreement, which of course sets the path for F1 for the next 5 years. Now, this is good news if you like to sit through pages and pages of regulations, if you're a team trying to find a loophole in it. But what does this actual deal mean for us, the layman terms of fans of good, hard racing?
I'm really impressed with what Liberty has done here, because if you think in the beginning of the year, they fought so hard to have a new set of rules, but they didn't have any contracts with nobody. So they start the year with no contracts, Ferrari not being really happy because of what happened to their engine. And at that moment, Liberty thought, okay, we can play with it. And then they had a 22 Grand Prix calendar. So a lot of money coming in. At the same time, as they are still spending a lot of money with digital because they are trying to update F1 as a business model. So for the second year, only the second year in the history of Formula One, they will have more money coming from the racing income rather than the TV. And they're spending a lot of money with the digital. So they are in a transition period, and then coronavirus happens. Coronavirus happens, they're not getting paid for all these races. They managed to get 17 races in the calendar, but they're not being paid the full fare for any of them. Some of them are not paying at all. That's why you have Italy with 3 races, and F1 has been suffering to have the Italians paying 20 million for one race. So they are definitely not paying 20 million for each one of those races. So the biggest income they are not receiving. The TV rights, that's why we're going for 70 races, because then they have to pay the full fare for the TV rights. So they have that income. And they have a lot of teams fighting with each other, because he copied too much of their car, and everything started to slip away from them. If they hadn't started this championship, it's something that we have to discuss, as maybe Formula One would have run out of business, because they were spending a lot of money. It comes from a lot of years spending a lot of money, and they would have no money from TV and no money from the races during the whole year. And Formula One is not as profitable to make it work, even though it's only one season, especially in a moment like that with a Concorde, because the teams could say, okay, if you didn't race this season, we didn't get any money, we are we're moving to another sport, we are doing something else with our lives. And if you are a team like Haas, you're gonna question, what am I doing here? McLaren was in trouble as well, Williams, of course, as well. So I'm really impressed with what they could put together with this deal. What does it mean for the future? Even though it's signed until 2025, they can always leave before that. It's always been like that. It will always be like that. But it's very, very impressive that they had everything against them and still they could make this deal work. I'm really impressed with all of that. I know as journalists, we like to be negative, but that is something you have to put your hands up for them.
What do you think, Kate? Because this is your area. Obviously, we have the new signing, Liberty. Like you say, it's good validation of what Liberty have been trying to achieve over the last kind of how many years it's now been they've been in charge. I think the question I'm trying to get to is, do you miss Bernie Ecclestone?
Well, obviously, you can't not miss Bernie Ecclestone. I mean, I'm not sure if you can see over my shoulder there the Bernie birthday princess puppet. No, you can't not miss him. He was absolutely brilliant for a scare quote and a terrible headline. And he knew exactly when to throw the cat among the pigeons and create a little bit of drama. But while that's entertaining from the point of view of an onlooker, it's in no way beneficial to the future health of a growing sport. And what's really great, I mean, as you said, pretty much everything there is to say about the Concorde Agreement. But what's really great about it, and this is partly because of the unusual environment that COVID has forced upon everyone, they were actually really able to drill down with the financials and the spending caps and force an environment where the playing field, in theory, should be better. And it's not going to be, let's be honest. I mean, the whole point of Formula One teams is that you hire the best people and you set them at their goals. And in X amount of time, the really, really clever ones will have figured out the advantage. And having a better financial balance is going to improve things a little bit, but it's not going to change. I mean, the best are the best and they will stay that way until there's a regulation change and somebody else becomes the best. That's how Formula One is. What Liberty have achieved in theory is not necessarily financial parity, but the equality of opportunity for survival, which is not something that has been in the books for the last 10 or 15 years.
I mean, do you think the cream will still rise to the top, or do you think this is an opportunity for you? Say your Racing Point turned Aston Martins, your especially Renault. I think we'll see this as an opportunity to start moving back up the grid. But in teams like Williams, the last time new regulations came through, they really took advantage of it. So who do you think could stand to win and who could lose out from this next kind of sea change?
Anyone could, in theory, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, it's Mercedes have been dominant for God knows how long now. It feels like a lifetime, but I guess it was only 2014. But yeah, F1 has always been cyclical. But yeah, somebody's going to come up with whatever the next, F duct or double diffuser or something. Look at what Braun did. There is the opportunity for a new Braun. I mean, Zhu's better placed than I am to guess who that's going to be. But in theory, once we get to 2022 and we have new cars again, hopefully it's anyone's game.
I did actually want to say, like, the new cars have obviously been delayed to 2022, so we don't have to worry about it quite so much. But we're coming to the end of this current generation of cars. Is this a generation we're going to miss? Do you think this is a generation that has been good for the sports, as you?
Yes and no. Of course, there's always the engine. The way the set of regulations was done for the engine, that was very bad for Formula One, because Mercedes came up with this idea, was this very complicated engine, and then Mr. Bernie Ecclestone said, okay, Mercedes, let's use your engine. It's so complicated and nobody can do the same as good as a job as you, and then you have to go and help Ferrari to make their own engine better, only then to say their engine is illegal, and all these sorts of things. It all comes from the bad decision making when they were deciding about this engine. Don't know if you remember, it was supposed to start to be used in 2013. I think it was delayed 1 year. It was all of a big mess, and it created mountains of mess after that. So that engine makes it so hard to try to think if the cars itself are good or not. Of course, the cars are really quick. I always thought it was a mistake to make that change in 2017, only to make the car quicker and more aggressive. I never quite understood that. But if we hadn't done that, then Mercedes wouldn't have the diva, as Lewis called back then, doesn't want to call it anymore. Mercedes wouldn't have had all the problems they had, and we would go back to 2016 only with two cars racing for the championship. You can ask me, so that's not what happened in 17, 18. We have a very short memory. Ferrari was there, not for the whole season, but that's not a Mercedes problem anyway. So in a way, I never understood why we went fast with the cars. So then you can all overtake and have all sorts of problems. But if we hadn't changed from 16 to 17, then we would have, I think, even worse series of championships. But the problem for me lays in 2014 in the engine. Not because I don't like the hybrid engine. I do think that was the step that Formula One should have taken, but not specifically this engine, and not an engine that would be as heavy as it is. And that is the main problem for me. The cars are way too big and way too heavy. And that doesn't matter what they can do with the aerodynamics. It's always going to be hard to race with those cars. They're not made to racing. They are made to improve the engineering of that engine. That is the problem for me.
Well, it's not NASCAR yet or anything like that. But actually, you raise an interesting point there, because the one kind of problem I guess F1 has, although I guess it's not a pressing problem at the moment, you haven't exactly got teams, or especially not manufacturers, banging on the door to get into Formula One. A lot of them diverted their resource over to Formula E. It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot more current, it's a lot more relevant. That you can finish 20th in Formula E and you can still do marketing off the back of it, because no one really knows if you're finishing 20th, finishing first in it. You're just competing in it. Whereas in Formula One, obviously, you need to win. And I guess you take the example of Honda. They're doing great now, but it's taken them a long time to get there. And whether that's because of the relationship with McLaren or problem with Honda trying to get up to speed. But do you think F1 stands on a precipice here of it's more likely to lose teams than it is to gain them, Kate?
Sorry, I've got a slow acting laptop. Almost certainly. I mean, every once in a while you do get people who come in. What was Stefan GP was one of my favourites in recent years. There are certain people who pop up every once in a while, and they are really, really excited about giving it a go. But quite frankly, the three of us could look behind the sofa and have a better opportunity at an F1 team. And so I think that you're always, well, I say always, for as long as F1 remains attractive, and I don't mean financially attractive. We all know that the best way to make a small fortune in motor racing is to start with a large one. As long as it has that sort of slightly sexy, glamorous appeal where people associate it with the VIP lifestyle and the Monaco and the blah, 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 always turning left on an airplane, that kind of thing, you're always going to get posers who want to come along and be part of the party. And most of them can't take seriously, but some of them have got a little bit of backing. In terms of getting big manufacturer-based outfits, manufacturer-backed outfits involved, I fear that time has passed, really. I think that while Formula E isn't most people's cup of tea, it is the C-suite's cup of tea. It plays quite well in a boardroom, whereas Formula One is more complicated. I think that even with the budget caps, and you might see a little bit more interest with the budget cap over the next few years, but it's going to be a hard sell. I mean, because the problem that Formula One has had for ages is a perception that it's dangerous for the environment. Whether or not that's true, you can argue 6 different ways till Sunday. But you combine that with the old TV contracts that Liberty have inherited and are having to wait to expire. But that means that you've got the reduction in eyeballs. A couple of financial crashes means that you've got the reduction in sponsors. Now look at what's going to happen with COVID and how that's going to affect global economy and investment and employment. I think it's going to be pretty hard to see an awful lot of investment coming into the sport from any direction, which is why this new budget cap is even more important than it was even 6 months ago.
I'd say bring back Minardi, personally. Now, we're a few rounds into the season. Just finally, I just wanted to bring you right back to the current day. We've had 7 rounds, 10 to go. I want you to pick 1 or 2 drivers that have each really impressed you this year and tell us why, and maybe 1 or 2 who are going to be getting a good, could do better at the F1 Parents Evening. Go with you first.
I would pick Carlos, mostly out of the track than inside the track, because he has suffered a lot with McLaren, just doing horrible pit stops and the worst strategy for him. And he was getting beaten by London, even in qualifying, which is something that he was not particularly used to. And with everything that happened with him before the season, being hired by Ferrari, so he went into the season thinking, I am the last cookie in the package here. And then it didn't happen for him straight away. And still he was being the Carlos that has always been a very good Carlos. Why am I talking about him? Many fans can say, but he wasn't as spectacular or this and that. Just from my experience in the paddock, this kind of things that he has been doing, the way he deals with his team internally, the way he deals with the press, the way he deals with sponsors, this is sometimes as important as what the guy is doing at the track. So I entered the season, wanted to explain people why did they choose Carlos Sainz and why I thought it was a very good choice. And I think he's proving my point here. When things are not going well for him, even though he had all this expectation behind him, still he's the same very professional driver, even though he's quite young. But he's got his father there. His father really knows the business, really knows, okay, don't throw your toys in the pram from the pram or whatever. Just keep focused, defend the team. The team is doing a lot of shit with you, with the pit stops, with strategy. Just stand behind them. Your engine is overheating and all that. Don't put don't blame the team for all that, which is something that Fernando would do, which is funny because he's always said, Fernando is my hero, but he seems to listen more to his dad than to Fernando, which is very good for him. I hope he keeps on the same route. But that's why he impressed me. He impressed me more outside the track than inside the track. But inside the track, he's doing what I expected him to do. And outside, I thought he could just feel much more important than he actually is, because now he is a Ferrari driver. Not now, but you get what I mean. And the one that I feel it's lacking a little bit is not only me, of course, he feels much more than me because he's so hard on himself, is Alex Albon. What happens with that Red Bull? I really don't understand. It seems like the Red Bull team can only work for one driver. And that's what Daniel saw, and that's why he left. That comes even from the Vettel era. Remember in the end of the 2010 championship, Mark Webber was in front and the team was really protecting Vettel. And it seems like they cannot have the same optimum strategy for both of them. They cannot think at the same time as well for both of the drivers. And that comes from a way back. Because I think they are the best ones with strategy. They're always so aggressive with it. But they're never very good with both drivers. There's always one driver who gets a very good one. And as we've seen in the last race, putting the hard tire on Alex, it just destroyed his race. So even though he's not doing well, I do think there's something that the Red Bull team has to look inside and ask, why can we not provide exactly the same condition for both drivers? I don't think they don't want to. I just think they can't.
Okay, who gets a gold star from you and who gets a big dollop of gruel?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm actually going to have to go with the obvious, and taking a cue from Zhu and looking at off-track performance as well as on. Lewis has been a sterling human being as well as being a really good racing driver. You know, and I think it's taken him a number of years to get comfortable enough to start being political. He occasionally will make a misstep because he's a human being, and we all do. But the attention that he's been trying to bring to the lack of diversity in racing, his own efforts to go out to the BLM protests in London, I think it's really good to see a driver actually saying something that's not linked to racing. It's been quite a while since we've seen the outside world come into the little world of the paddock outside of a financial impact. I know that he's found it difficult sort of having the right conversations with the other drivers, getting people to see things, but he keeps having those conversations. And I think he deserves an awful lot of credit for that. Plus also, he's destroying the competition on track and happens to have the best car, and hopefully he's going to destroy Schumacher at Ferrari's whatever 1000th race in Mugello. Not that I'm a horrible human being or anything. As for the person who I think is most disappointing, it's kind of hard to choose. We've got quite a big field of you look at Sebastian Vettel, who has been disappointing since he span in Germany a couple of years ago, let's be frank. Romain Grosjean doesn't seem to be having the best year ever. Like you said, poor Alex, who's being hard on himself, has had ups and downs. I wouldn't even know where to start. I think an awful lot of people need to sit not on the naughty step, but sit on the disappointed step and think about what they've done and sort themselves out over the next 11.
Now, who shall I go for? My gold star goes to Nico Hülkenberg, just because he turned up and was pretty quickly. I suppose can do better. You're right, Kate. I think there's quite a few people that need to think about what they're going to do over the next few races. You mentioned Romain there. I feel like we said that quite a few times in the last couple of years. You have to wonder how many chances there are with such good drivers coming up through the ranks, as demonstrated by Lando at times, Alex and George Russell as well. Actually, George Russell's done a great job this year. As for for the bad people, Daniel Kvyat, because I kind of forgot he was there.
I left Vettel for you because I knew you were going to mention Sebastian Vettel. What is wrong with him, isn't it?
Well, there was going to be a whole topic on Sebastian Vettel, but Zoom tends to only have 40 minutes and we could be here forever. We could dedicate a whole thing to Sebastian Vettel, but he looks like he's a bit down on his luck at the moment. I kind of feel like, we should be giving him a boost rather than kind of kicking him while he's down. Although I imagine Aston Martin racing point might be just kind of considering whether, it might be worth kind of taking him on. But that'll be a subject for another day. So we wrap things up today. That's thank you, Kate, and you for joining me again. Keep your Crash.net for this weekend for the brilliant Belgian Grand Prix, and here's hoping it is a hell of a lot better than the Spanish race.
Thanks very much for having us.
Thanks.